All right, we're back.
Hey,
We took last week off because I was on vacation out visiting my grandkids in Seattle. So we're back now. And we have a pretty diverse show. We have Missy Stults from the city of Ann Arbor. She's the Sustainability and Innovations Director. And she's going to be talking about the community listening sessions on the sustainable heating proposal that was put out, I guess, by the city council on March 20th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And as we all know, Ann Arbor is a pretty green city. And so why don't we talk about that? Let's start off with that point. So what happened on March 20th? Give me the backstory on that, if you would, please.
Yeah, so I guess the big framing here is that the city has adopted something called A20, which is our community's goal, framework, and actions to become carbon neutral community-wide in a just and equitable way by 2030. And that means we've got to look at all of the sources of climate pollution that's coming out of our community. And we know that one large source is from how we heat our buildings and cool our buildings or heat our food. And so in Michigan, we have franchises or contracts that help determine how we get fuel to do those things. And City Council on March 20th tasked the city administrator and staff with looking at sustainable alternatives to heating our homes and buildings throughout the entire community.
All right. Oh, your video was off. Oh, you're not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now I'm back. Yeah, there's a little glitch in the matrix here.
Yeah.
So you've got a franchise with DTE for methane and fossil fuel gas. What's going to be the status of that under this new plan?
Yeah, so franchises in Michigan expire, right? So our franchise is set to expire in 2027. So we're going to have to negotiate a new franchise for service anyway. And you can't in Michigan get service if you don't have an existing franchise. So we have to, right? Like that's 2027 is both a long ways away and coming pretty fast. So this is, and I keep saying in Michigan because it's different in different states, but here you got to have a franchise. So we've got to start negotiating. What we're doing right now is a few things. Certainly we're doing research on what others around the nation are doing and how they're heating sustainably their built infrastructure. We've been talking to different firms. We've been talking to DTE, and we're doing a bunch of public listening sessions to get the public's feedback about what they want in a new franchise, what matters to them. In addition to those listening sessions, which I know we're going to talk about, we also put out a request for ideas for the marketplace. So this is for kind of enterprises, utilities, companies in the industry who have ideas about how we could do this to share those ideas with us. So that's also live right now.
All right. So, well, getting back to the, it's not on the question list, but I mean, I'm still totally clear on why everybody wants to not have natural gas as a heating or cooking source. Can you give me a little background on that? I want to be clear on why that's because I thought that was a fairly clean power source, but not, huh?
Yeah, well, many of us did, right? And I did too for a long time. Let me start by saying natural is a total misnomer, right? This is fossil gas. Natural gas, as they call it, is methane. That is what it is. And methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas, 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide, which is the gas we mostly talk about. So there's nothing natural about it. Also, there's been a lot of research looking at both the climate contribution, but also the health contribution that fossil gas has. And one of the kind of more iconic things that got press earlier this year was research showing that up to 14% of childhood asthma rates are attributed to gas. And that's largely from your cooktop. And we've seen research demonstrating a very clear line to heart disease, cancer, other respiratory ailments, all associated with burning gas, because you're burning it, right? Like, unlike electricity, you're burning it, combusting it literally at that spot. And so those chemicals get produced right next to you, and we inhale those. So it has really significant ramifications. Other side, on the climate perspective, one of the things that research has shown, methane leaks, right? As you're moving it through pipelines, and across the country, we have varying levels of leakiness in our system, but at 3% leakage, methane is worse than coal in terms of its climate impact. And guess what? Methane in Michigan leaks over 3%. That's not great. So this is part of the ecosystem of why we're having a conversation about things like Can we use that existing pipeline and maybe talk about community geothermal? Or can we capture heat from our wastewater system? Because we're already moving wastewater throughout the community and there's heat associated with that. Can we find other ways of having kind of a managed transition to a more sustainable source of heating that certainly helps the climate, but also improves public health, quality of life, local jobs? You sort of get where we're going.
Now, does distributed generation, rooftop solar, that kind of thing, wind power, and gradually shifting to electric, water heating and space heating, is all that going to play a role in this, or is that still pretty far in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. So actually 20% of our residents already heat with electric, largely through electric resistance heating, which isn't the most efficient source of heating that there is with the old technology. So for those folks, we're looking at kind of cleaning that system using distributed energy resources, deploying them. But the answer is maybe. I mean, maybe for broader scale distribution. This is why we're seeking ideas from the marketplace and from our residents to really understand what they're looking for. And the other reality we have here, at least in the Ann Arbor service territory, is DTE is we've got the highest electric rates in the Midwest. So it's not enough just to say we're switching to electric for heating and cooling. We're also looking at how do we do efficiency work, right? The best electricity, the best energy, any energy source is the energy you don't use. So how do we first invest in efficiency or simultaneously while we're doing a transition? So I wish this were simple. There are markets that you hear people talking about as just one-for-one replacement over to electricity. But for us, alas, we have to stack lots of different solutions together.
Yeah, heat pumps. Are they in the equation that you're looking at?
Yeah, cold climate air source heat pumps are absolutely in the equation. So those are air source heat pumps, but we're also looking at ground source heat pumps, also known as geothermal systems. Those are absolutely in the equation. And even outside of this, we're doing a lot of work right now to help support residents with the transition to cold climate air source heat pumps, which are really viable and very exciting.
I hadn't heard of the air source heat pumps. How do those work? I understand how the geothermal ones work because you go down a few feet and it's like 55 degrees year round, basically, and you can use that to either heat or cool depending on how you run the compressor and all that. But what about the air ones? How do those work?
Well, your technical audience is going to know this way better than I do, right? So I'm pretty sure it's magic. No. So what basically happens, there's always heat in the air, in the environment around us, and heat pumps capture that and use it. They use it to produce energy systems. So everyone has, well, I shouldn't say everyone, most people have heat pumps already in their home. Your refrigerator, your air conditioner, or heat pumps. They're doing this, right? They're either cooling or warming, whatever sort of you're putting them in play. But something like an air conditioner is kind of a dumb heat pump. It only works one way, right? It's only cooling. Well, a mini split is a form of heat pump that works both ways. And so one very simple thing we talk about is let's not do one-way air conditioning anymore. Let's start incentivizing deployment of two-way heat pumps. So you can heat and cool with that exact same device.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, because you look at the exhaust of an air conditioner and it's warm, and
yeah, exactly,
so
right?
It's pumping warmth out. It's just pumping it out into the environment. If you could reverse that cycle, and take the cold from outside and have it pump out warmth, well, there you go.
Yeah, and in many marketplaces, including ours, like a mini split sort of goes in a wall and can do a few rooms. They're pretty close to cost parity with an air conditioner anyway. So if you could cover that delta, which the federal government is working to do through the Inflation Reduction Act, so that it's the same price, if not cheaper, to get a two-way heat pump instead of a one-way, aka air conditioner, well, that's great, right? So how do we incentivize, also educate the workforce, our residents, and make sure we have the equipment in hand so that you can make this replacement? That's part of what we're working on too.
All right, so all this bundled together, you're looking for a carbon neutral, community-wide and equitable way by 2030, which is, 7 years off, 6.5. How are you going to do that?
Everything you can imagine. For folks who are interested, I'd take a look at our A20 plan, but it really is a lot of different things. It's figuring out, we're talking today about heating our homes and our buildings, and the franchise is a tool to help us do that. We're also working on strategies to make sure our electricity is 100% renewably powered, and there's a lot of tools available to help us advance that work. We're working on our land use, making sure that we have certainly more public transit and walk and biking infrastructure, but also that infrastructure leads to where you want to go, so that you have neighborhood grocery stores or amenities that you can actually walk and bike to. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You have a bike lane. You're not going to take it, right? If the grocery store is still 7 miles away. So that's part of the work strategy. We're incentivizing and deploying electric vehicle charging and helping our enterprises, whether they be commercial or city entities, transition over to electric vehicles, working on sustainable food programs with our local farmers and restaurants. We're working on planting more trees and doing more stormwater management throughout the whole community, working on resilience. There's a lot. We're working on over 37 different initiatives right now. But if anyone's interested, you could check out our website and learn a little bit more.
So let's talk about these sessions. I think one of them's coming up this week, right? Listening session?
Yeah, we have 2 listening sessions. One is May 11th, so this week at 6 p.m. The second is the 16th at 6 p.m. They're virtual. Folks just need to register in advance so that way we can keep track and make sure we have all the right tools in place. But they're an opportunity to share your feedback. We have a little bit of content just telling people what a franchise is and what a franchise isn't, so they understand where we have latitude and creativity versus where we have to sort of stick with within regulatory requirements. And then the rest of the time is an open forum where we're going to take people's ideas and we're going to chronicle them.
Okay, so I'm a little bit curious about the effort that the city of Ann Arbor is putting into this. They hired you. Do you have a staff? I mean, how many people are working on this for the city?
Yeah, so I've been with the city for almost 5 years. I am fortunate enough to be the first official sustainability director for the city, but the city's actually had someone working on sustainability activities. They just evolved over time, but we've had someone for almost 30 years working on topics. So this isn't new for the city, but today our team is 11 folk. And in November, Ann Arborites actually voted, 71% of Ann Arborites voted to become the 8th community in America to tax ourselves to fund climate work. So we passed a community climate millage for 20 years to fund climate activity.
Okay, what kind of budget does that give you?
Roughly 7 million, and it'll
Okay.
change. It's a property assessment, so it'll fluctuate, right? It could go down, it could go up, just depending on property values.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, ask Mike. They're going up in Ann Arbor most of the time.
I mean, I live here too. Yeah.
And that money will be used for is it earmarked something specific or just generally to help out?
Yeah, it has to go to the A20 plan. So the plan has been adopted by City Council and actually outlines all of the activities we're working on. And your timing is also brilliant because we gave council our proposed budget and they vote on it next Monday, a week from today. So I could tell you theoretically what we put towards it, but it's council's decision and we'll know more next week.
Okay. All right. So how did you come to be in this role? Tell us a little bit about your background and what your doctorate is in and all that good stuff.
Why, thank you. Yeah, so I ended up stumbling into climate work while I was doing my undergraduate in marine biology and realized climate change was going to impact everything I cared about, whether that was whales and dolphins or the people in the places that I had loved. I grew up in northern Indiana in the Michiana sort of region, and decided I was going to transition. I wasn't going to become a marine biologist. So I got involved in climate work, really focusing on what I call the so what question. So what? The climate's changing. Why should you care socially, politically, economically, culturally? What does it mean for humans? What does it mean for our society? And started working with local and tribal populations. And I did that for a very long time and decided to come do a PhD in resilience and really tell the stories of communities and the work they were doing because a lot wasn't being told. So I came to the University of Michigan, did a dual PhD, one in urban planning and one in natural resources and the environment, which is now SEAS. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty great. And worked during it to stay really connected. And then the opportunity opened up in the city and I decided it was a great place to stay. And here I am.
Okay. So one more time, if folks want to sign up for these virtual events, I'll be sure when we do the on-demand portion of this segment that we'll include that link. Yeah, right. But what link can they use since we're live right now?
Sure. Simplest way to get there is to go to www.a2gov.org/sustainability. And then on the left nav, you'll see directions to get to the heating franchise.